Okay. Okay, Pat. So let's start with the interview. So, Pat, welcome to the talk show. Welcome to the interview, and really glad to have you here. Could you please briefly introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. My name is Pat McClellan. I am a career changer into Salesforce. I had a 30 plus year career in media production and events marketing. And then in 2017, I moved over into the Salesforce world. I missed making things. And so I learned to be a developer and developed an app that's now on App Exchange. It's called Proton Text. So I'm working as I do some consulting as well, but I'm a ISV App Exchange partner.
Okay, great. So that's a big career change, right? So,
It is,
what
but
motivated to you to start your first company?
well, actually, the first company I started was in the 90s.
Okay,
I graduated from college with a film degree and worked as a corporate video producer for about 10 years.
okay.
During that time, I got my MBA going to school at night.
Mhm.
And then when I left that company, I started my own company to produce multimedia. At that time, video production, the equipment for that was way too expensive for anybody to their own. So multimedia was a much more affordable way to go. I was a developer on the Macromedia Director platform, which was developing CD-ROMs. And you may remember Shockwave, the Shockwave plugin to
Oh
browsers
yeah,
years ago,
yeah.
was to play programs that were created in Macromedia Director. So I did computer-based training, I did point of purchase kiosks, I did some games actually for Disney. That was my first company developing multimedia.
Okay, excellent. And what's your current company about?
Well, I started Proton 7 Group when I became a freelancer, initially thinking I was going to do consult. And I found out very quickly that despite my training, the training that I got on Trailhead, despite the certifications, I kind of ran into a roadblock when I looked to have people hire me as a developer, even as a consultant developer, because I didn't have any experience of people paying me to write code.
Okay,
I would have had more luck getting a job, as a chief marketing officer than as a developer. And I realized, it's that same catch 22 that so many people find themselves in, where I don't have the experience and I can't get hired to get the experience. So what do I do? So I made my own experience. I started building Proton Text as a demonstration of my capability to build an app.
mhm,
It allowed me to demonstrate some pretty solid back-end skills integrating with an external API, with batch processing, with scheduled Apex, with some very sort of higher level Apex challenges, and to show a front end with talk bubbles. And I didn't have to come up with what should this look like. I looked at my
mhm.
phone, the SMS app on my phone, and said, yeah, this is what it should look like. It should have talk bubbles. It should be organized with the oldest messages at the top, and you scroll down to the newest messages and you enter the message you want to send at the bottom. So all of that sort of basic foundational work of product development was essentially done for me. I could copy what everybody would expect from an SMS app. And so I built that to really to prove that I could. And the more I got into it, the more I thought, this is maybe viable. Let's put this on App Exchange.
Great, great. That's interesting. So, what about your school? Where did you go to school, and what was your major? What did you study?
Sure. I went to school at Northwestern University, just north of Chicago, Evanston, Illinois. I got a degree in radio, TV, film. My interest was I had been a radio DJ when I was in high school, and
Okay.
really loved understanding what goes behind the scenes. How does that sound come out of your radio, and also how do they make TV shows? And so I went to school for that. I got out, and many of the people that graduate from that program go on to grad school and never work in the industry. I worked for 10 years, not in broadcast, but in corporate video. I worked for Baxter Healthcare, again in the Chicago area, as a corporate video writer, producer, director. It gave me a great opportunity to exercise project management skills, to exercise my creativity as well as my technical side. And so that was a really good place for me to be. While I was working there, the clients that I was working with were in all phases of the corporate business, and I got interested in a business degree. And so I went to Kellogg Graduate School at night and got my MBA.
That's like a really diverse background that you have, right? That's
Maybe.
amazing.
I should say that while I was at Northwestern, I did take
Uh-huh.
a computer programming class. The only official computer programming class that I've ever had
Yeah.
was at Northwestern. We used the Pascal language. It involved punch cards. So I'm
Oh,
really old.
okay. I believe NASA also used to use punch cards to
They did.
fine tune
They
their machines.
did.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, that's amazing. Okay, so next question to you would be, did you choose the entrepreneur life or did it choose you?
Oh, I don't know. I think so much of this is foundational when you're a kid, what you see as a possibility in your life. I think of my father. My father was an entrepreneur. My father is a funeral director. He owned his own business and ran that for nearly 50 years. My mother, after I was an adult, my mother became a business owner. She and her second husband owned a business doing restoration of buildings after storm damage. So there was a sort of a construction and repair business.
Hmm.
So I grew up. My grandfather was a general contractor, a construction general contractor. So I grew up in an era and in a family where people owned their own businesses and were responsible for hiring and firing and generating business and all of that. So I guess from the earliest part of my life, I understood that that was a possibility.
Hmm.
And then, getting out of college, I worked for a major corporation. Then when, after that 10-year period, I started my own business to produce multimedia. I ended up getting hired by one of my clients into a marketing agency. And I worked for that global marketing agency for 15 years, rising up to the level of executive VP for all of the West Coast. So I was responsible for the P&L for the San Francisco and Los Angeles offices. So
Right.
I had that corporate experience. And then, I went back when I left the corporate world or the world of corporate employment. Starting my own business as a consultant was not a leap. I knew I could do that. I
Hmm.
could set myself up, and I knew I would just have to market myself.
That's great. So I believe that most people who do not come from a business background, or I mean, people who do not have people in their family who are not into business, whenever they're starting something on their own for the first time, they have this fear of failing. What if things don't work for them? Did you ever have something like a fear like that or anything related to that?
Yes, of course. I mean, everybody goes through that feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm leaving my job to go out on my own. What am I going to do? Well, the reality is there's no way to know whether you're going to be successful or not. You just have to do it and trust that if it does not work out in 6 months' time, if I'm getting no income, uh, I will have to look for something else. I will have to pivot. I will have to understand what the real need is and decide, can I adapt? Can I pivot my direction so that I can meet that need and generate revenue? Or can I go out and get a job again? Right. So
Yeah.
you can always interview and get another job. I think the key is whatever job you're in, whether you're working for yourself or whether you are working for a corporation, maybe especially if you're working in a sort of 9 to 5 established job with benefits and a steady paycheck, make sure that you don't get too comfortable and fall into that inertia. If you are not learning something new every day, every week, every month, if you are not improving your marketability, your value in this world, through learning new skills, through managing teams and getting experience there. If you're not improving yourself, you're writing your own, career death certificate. You have to
Mm-hmm.
keep improving yourself and knowing your value in the market and keeping an eye on what is it that the market is valuing.
Mm-hmm.
um, it's not, you don't stop learning at the end of college. You better not, or
Yeah,
you're not really going to go very far in your career.
that's true. That's true. So, according to you, what is the basic skill set required in order to start a business? Like, if a new person they want to get into business, it could be any kind of business. Certainly, they will require some skill set related to that business. For example, if they're getting into tech, a little bit knowledge about tech would be helpful. But apart from that very specific knowledge, is there any general set of like any general knowledge that they should have before getting into starting a new
Sure.
business?
I think maybe the most basic thing is understand, what is your business model. If you have never written out a business plan, you should. A business plan seems like a very tedious thing because you're not going to submit it to a client. This is for yourself, but it is maybe the most essential thing that you're going to do. You need to find out. And by the way, this isn't a magic thing. You can create your own business plan. Just Google search for business plan, and you'll find dozens of templates out there. And essentially, you need to figure out, who is it that is going to pay me for what, and how much, and what am I going to need to do to continue to generate that revenue and grow that revenue. um, if you haven't got that concept, if you just say, hey, I'm a great programmer, or I'm a great marketer, I can sell anything, well, that's great, but how are you going to turn that into something that people will pay you for?
Mm,
If you can't make that leap, then you better be working for a corporation that has already figured that part out, right? So
mhm,
that's when you leave a corporate gig, that's the part that you're now missing, is who's going to pay you? How are you going to get your customers? How are you going to keep them happy? How many hours are you going to have to work to generate the kind of revenue the kind of income that you were used to making at your corporate gig?
mm,
So I think that skill around writing a business plan, figuring out what that is. And by the way, that's a living document. That is not a once and done. That is reevaluate that every quarter. That becomes your strategic guide to what you need to be doing, what you need to be learning, where you need to be networking, where you need to be finding new customers, all of those sort of things. Um, then there are the sort of operational skills that you will need. You got to know, how am I going to invoice my customers? How am I going to make sure that they pay me? How am I setting myself up to manage my taxes? So there's the sort of accounting side of things, the operational side of things, that you have to get that figured out as well. And
mhm.
that becomes something that you're doing in addition to the 40 hours that you're coding or doing whatever else service that you are for your customers.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's very true, especially people who are getting into business in these areas. Um, I believe there are services now which are able to help new entrepreneurs run all of these things on the side so that they can put their main focus on developing their product or technology. But definitely having knowledge about these things is beneficial. That's true.
Right. Well, and you're right. There are a lot of resources out there. LegalZoom. I use LegalZoom to set up my LLC. I use QuickBooks Online to run my business. To do my invoicing through. So there are a lot of resources out there. You just have to figure out how to do that. Set yourself up, get your accounts, and have the discipline to do that.
Mhm.
Years ago, I had lots of friends that were freelancers in the video industry. And some of the ones that were the busiest ended up going bankrupt because they didn't take the time to send out invoices. They were working like crazy, and they just weren't getting paid for it because they didn't have the discipline to send the invoices.
Mhm. Yeah, that's the most important part of the business. If
It
you're
is.
not,
And
if you're
and
not,
follow up to make sure you get paid.
yeah,
And
exactly.
figure out, you're going to have to figure out how to do a services contract with someone.
Mhm,
Make sure, figure out what are your rules.
mhm,
If you do an estimate on a job, you insist on getting paid the first $1,000 or whatever to get started, to make sure that you're not going to get shafted. And you may get shafted in the end. You know, there are bad customers out there, but you know, you treat people how to treat you. You teach people how to treat you.
Correct.
And that's especially the case in a business. When you go into business with them and they say, hey, you know, would you be able to do this for us? Well, you have to be able to write up a proposal, write up exactly what you're going to do for them, tell them
Mhm.
what it's going to cost, tell them how you're going to charge them, and make sure that they agree to pay you.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. Okay, so what would you say, how difficult it is to start a business in this year, 2021, especially due to the pandemic going on?
I don't know.
Uh,
I didn't start a business in the pandemic. There are, uh, I would say that the curve has probably dropped pretty deeply.
okay,
The key thing here is that it, I'm sorry for my notifications. Let me turn that off. I know that's creating.
that's okay.
So um, the, creativity and building a company is an exercise in creativity. Uh, Creativity is at its best, and I think depends on constraints. It is much easier to sit down and write a song as a score for a film when you know the scene is 2 minutes and 20 seconds long and we need to convey this sense and it's in this period, so we're using these instruments. So these are your constraints, and it's much easier to write that than for someone to say, write me a piece of music, you know,
Correct,
with
yeah.
no constraints. And
Mm-hmm.
that is incredibly hard. The blank canvas is incredibly hard. And
Mm.
so when you think about what we're doing now with the pandemic, uh, think of it not necessarily as a big disadvantage. Think of it as a new constraint that offers new opportunities. So, for example, uh, it used to be, in fact, I was just talking with an entrepreneur earlier today, and he was talking about how he had planned to launch his business and start he's based in Germany, and he was going to start with the events that were based in Europe, geographically moving to those. And once he sort of had some critical mass, then move to the US and start hitting up, you know, marketing in different cities there. And I said, well, you know, that's kind of out the window because now that everything is virtual, the geographic constraint goes away. So in a way, it's a disadvantage that you can't meet people face to face.
Yeah.
The advantage is people don't expect you to meet them face to face, and that takes away the geographic barrier. So there are opportunities and there are new needs that have emerged out of the pandemic. People need different things. They need different services. They have different expectations of what's going to be delivered to them and how they're going to pay for that. So, you know, don't see the pandemic. I often say the easiest thing to do is talk yourself out of a good idea. It's much easier
Mm.
to talk yourself out of a good idea than it is to actually follow through and to try to see if it's a good idea, to vet it, to develop it. So just look at the times that we're in, just like you would any other time, right? If the pandemic wasn't here, you might have more competition. You might have other people that can afford to pay for sponsorship at events that you can't afford. There are lots of other constraints that you don't have to worry about right now. And especially for a startup and for someone that's relatively small scale, virtual is wonderful because you
Yeah.
can reach a lot more places and a lot more people much quicker.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, definitely. Like certainly it has opened a lot of different types of opportunities. So let's talk about your, so when you were starting your first as well as your second company, what were some of the hardships or failures that you faced, and what were some of your successes?
Uh, well, I think, you know, as a solo entrepreneur, I face the same time management problems that many people, many founders do. Days that I was coding are days that I could not be marketing.
Hmm.
And honestly, I enjoyed the coding more. And I knew that long term, I would really need to start marketing and getting my app put on App Exchange sort of changed things, except that once it's on App Exchange, it's one of 10,000 or more apps. And, you still have to get out there and market yourself and differentiate yourself. It's kind of a seal of approval when you can tell people, my app is on App Exchange, you can find it there, but you still have to let them know what it does and that it's there and that they should look at it and why it's different. So, time management is one, trying to figure out how to build a brand from nothing against much bigger companies.
Yeah.
But, every major corporation out there has had to, there was a time when Facebook had to figure out how are they going to overcome MySpace.
Mm.
Now it's kind of laughable, but MySpace was the 800-pound gorilla in that market,
Yeah.
and Facebook had to figure out how do they differentiate themselves, how do they grow that business. So whatever business you are, whatever scale you are, you have to figure out how am I going to make myself known and make
Mm.
myself relevant.
Great, great. And what are some of the positive aspects of that? Like any successes that you achieved while working for your first as well as second company?
Sure. So um, one of the things when you are self-employed, when you've got your own operation and you start generating revenue, uh, it provides a level of confidence that um, you know that you will never be unemployed again.
Yeah,
You
that's
might
true.
be self-employed between customers,
Yeah.
but you're never unemployed. There's something very affirming about the ability uh, to create your own value and sell that in the market. Um, so it provides a confidence
Hmm.
that is more than makes up for that level of insecurity that you have when you leave a secure job and jump into this. Now, I should say I
Definitely.
don't take for granted the fact that job security is important if it's a tough market out there, if you have dependents that you got to pay for school, you got to pay for a house, you got to pay for all of this, you got to figure out your health care. If I leave the company, I lose my medical benefits. I don't take that for granted. I understand that challenge, and I'm not saying that it's the right thing to do to jump in and just go for it. It might not be. It might not be your time. You might not have the right idea. It may be years before you match the level of income you were before. In
Hmm.
fact, that's the situation I had when I left. I'd been an executive in this marketing agency at an executive level for about 10 years when I left. And, I had a good salary and I had
Hmm.
great benefits and lots of job security. And it was kind of a leap into this. I had done it before. And I had built up enough savings to know that I had a runway. I knew that I needed to start generating revenue within, X number of months. So, you got to figure out all of that before you make the leap. But the insecurity you face there, it's more than compensated for once it starts working, once you're generating it. Now, it may not turn into what you think it is.
Hmm.
Like I say, when I started this, I pictured myself mostly doing consulting, and building the product sort of came as a pivot, if you will, when
Yeah.
I faced the challenge that nobody would hire me as a consultant. Funny, one of the things, getting the app on the App Exchange gave me instant credibility as a consultant.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if you like, you have to go through multiple cycles to get your app approved over there. So definitely, I would say, if you have an app over there, then I would hire you, directly without
Right, right.
too
Well,
many
yeah,
questions.
everybody knows it's quite a gauntlet to get through
Yeah.
security review and get your app on there.
Hmm.
I will say, you ask about what some of the what's the gratification. Working with my customers who install my app and have questions about, hey, can it do this or could it do this? I went through so many versions in the first year, where each new customer would have a new idea about, hey, it would be great if it could do this or that, or working these and whatever. And so I would update the app and make it better for everybody. And so the app really improved so much with the input of the customers. And I especially love working with my customers that are small businesses and nonprofit organizations.
Mhm.
I really get a lot of gratification out of helping them out and making sure that they've got an affordable solution that really is bringing a lot of value to them.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So, apart from work, what do you do when you're not working?
Oh, well, I have become a pandemic cliche.
Okay.
This morning before our interview, I baked 2 loaves of sourdough bread.
Mhm.
We adopted a puppy during the pandemic.
Yeah.
My wife and I, we cook a lot. My wife is a gardener, so I'm cooking a lot of fruits and vegetables that she's growing.
Mhm.
Um, and we even got the Peloton exercise bike. So
Okay.
my physical regimen has shifted from the YMCA pool to my own bike, the Peloton bike.
Okay.
We've bought into all of the pandemic cliches.
Yeah. I mean, it's
Uh,
good
I
to stay healthy, right? So
yeah.
it's good that you're exercising.
I also I enjoy playing the piano and
Uh-huh.
composing music and that sort of thing.
Great, great. What would be a life lesson that you would like to share? That you learned throughout, when going through life.
Sure. I think for me, I grew up in a family. I grew up in the South in a small town where it was all about athletic prowess. The popular kids were the ones that were good at sports. Uh, I was not good at sports. I
Okay.
was good at math and science and English, and I was good at school. Uh, and therefore, my family really was very good, and this was the case with my brother and my sister as well. We no athletes in my family at that stage,
Okay.
and so we built our self-esteem around academic accomplishment and pushing ourselves and learning. And in my family, maybe the worst character flaw was to be lazy. And lazy for me was not a physical thing, it was an intellectual thing. Being lazy meant that I wasn't trying as hard as I could have in a class, or I wasn't learning as much as I could, or whatever. And that has sort of been a foundation in my personality, I think, because these days I feel lazy if I'm not learning something new every day. I've used that as a guide to my career advancement. Every new position that I took, even every client that I take now, I look at that, and if they want me to do something that I've done before many times, it's not interesting to me, and I'm less likely to take on that client. I want to be learning something new every day, and if I'm not, I feel lazy. I feel like I'm doing a disservice to myself. I'm not improving myself. Um, so I don't have a things to do list. I have a things to learn list, and I maintain it, and it changes constantly. Books to read, that sort of thing. That keeps me interested.
That's very true. That's very true. And what's your favorite book and why?
Oh, all right. So um, I'll share the book that I recommend the most
Hmm.
is *Sapiens*
Sapiens.
by Yuval Harari. It's a fantastic book. It's nonfiction. Um, it's life changing. I think about it a lot. Think and recommend The Omnivore's Dilemma. I told you I'm kind of a foodie. The
Okay.
Omnivore's Dilemma by Michael Pollan is a fantastic book. It will change the way you think about eating
Hmm.
and about the food system and all of that. Beyond I
Okay.
love reading nonfiction by Neil Stevenson, sci-fi, but and not just sci-fi, but he's written a lot of historical fiction as well. Neil Stevenson. I like Michael Lewis for nonfiction. He
Hmm.
wrote the Big Short and Moneyball and about a dozen other books. Mary Roach is a great science writer and very funny. I have a lot of different writers that I really enjoy reading, and I read a lot.
Okay. That's quite a lot of choice. So that's also good. And what's
Oh,
the best?
One thing I should mention, I
Uh-huh.
don't read many business books, and I know
Oh,
that
okay.
frankly, after getting my MBA, it's not to say that I know everything, but after going through business school,
Hmm.
I become very wary of pop business books. There's some very good business books out there, and I've seen a few, but in general, I don't go out and read the latest business book, that comes out. I
Hmm.
feel like as a business owner, it's more important for me to have a well-rounded base of knowledge and to be
Definitely.
peppering my mind with interesting, whether it's fiction or sci-fi or science. I read a lot of science and nonfiction.
Hmm.
I think the diversity in a reading list is much more important than keeping up with the latest pop business book.
That's true. That's true. So for 2021, do you have a pledge?
I do, in fact.
Okay.
Uh, uh, I should say that my company, I'm a member of 1%. If you're familiar with that, but if you go to pledge1%.com or
Okay.
.org, in fact, I've even got their cover. You can see, oops,
Okay.
there you go,
Uh-huh.
pledge 1%. This is an organization that basically encourages businesses and independent people to pledge 1%, and that 1% could be 1% of your profit, could be 1% of your revenue, it could be 1% of your time, 1% of your employees' time. And Salesforce, I'm part of the Salesforce ecosystem. Salesforce was one of the founding members of Pledge One, and so as a Pledge One member, I really enjoy the giving back, knowing that what I'm doing is not just benefiting me, but benefiting others. And so what I've done, my pledge for this year is to pledge more of my time, more than 1% of my time, to make it more about my time and my effort than just some money that I'm giving to a nonprofit. Um, Certainly, nonprofits are in deep need right now, and need to get that pledge. I'm doing that as well, but I'm giving of my time trying to help them out with doing free consult, pro bono consulting, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's great. That's a very noble cause. Okay, so we have reached the rapid fire section of the interview. So I will ask you uh, short questions, and you don't have to think about them too long, and then you have to answer them in very short sentences. So are you ready?
Do my best.
Okay. So three things no one knows about you.
No one knows about me. Um, Three things most people don't know about me.
Uh-huh.
I was a radio disc jockey, and my radio name was Rick Sullivan. That was 1978 to 1980.
Okay.
That was at a top 40 radio station in Danville, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, I'm a grandfather. Most
Okay.
people don't assume that or know that about me. Number three, I started a book club for kids during the pandemic, and so several days a week on Zoom, I read to 6 to 12-year-olds. We
Mm-hmm.
read chapter books right now. We're on our 20th book. Been doing it since March.
Well, that's great. That's so nice. What's the craziest thing someone has done for you?
The craziest things. My wife married me. That was kind of crazy. She
Okay.
didn't think it was going to work out, but we've been
Uh-huh.
married 28 years, so
Oh,
she
that's
was wrong.
great. That's great. That's nice. What's the one thing that you would like to change about yourself?
Oh, well, I'm the short guy in my family. Um, Everybody else in my family is over 6 feet tall. I'm 5 feet 9. And so I would like to be taller, sure.
Okay. What's your spirit animal?
My spirit animal, a dog, just a dog.
Okay. Okay.
I'm a dog person.
Yeah. A rumor about you that you wish were true.
A rumor about me. I just hope that people are talking about me. I
Okay.
don't know that anybody's creating rumors about me.
Okay. Um, okay. What's the easiest way to piss you off?
Micromanage me.
Okay. That's true. Okay. So now you have to rate yourself from 1 to 10, and 1 being the lowest. So quick learner,
10.
book enthusiast,
8.
Leader,
I think
CEO,
I don't know, 5.
a friend,
And 10.
a husband.
10.
Okay, great. You did very well. So that was the end of the rapid fire round. And now, so the last question for you is like, can you nominate 3 other C-level executives who would be interested in doing an interview similar to this one with me?
You know, there are a few people that I really admire. Uh, Ian Gotts at Elements Cloud
Okay.
is a very impressive man and thoughtful, gives back to the community. I think a lot of. Um, uh, I would say that Ian is the main one that I can think of.
Okay, sure, not a
Sorry,
problem at all.
I'll give you some thought and try to send you some other names.
Okay, sure, take your time, not a problem at all. So that was the end of our interview. So thank you for, coming on this talk show with me and sharing so much, knowledge and experience about your like life, your companies, and all of that. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you, had some fun sharing all of that things with me. And I hope, 2021 works really well for your company.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks. It's been a pleasure to be on.
Yeah, pleasure was all mine to have you on this interview. So, have this is just the beginning of 2021. I hope this month, next month is going to be very crucial for you because businesses are just starting to open up again, and I hope you get a lot of clientele. I hope this interview helps you to reach out to multiple other people as well, and all the very best for this new year.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Okay then, so take care.